Hello, good morning. Today we are going to learn how English spread in India as a language. In today's scenario, we find English everywhere in India. It is deeply enrooted in we Indians. It has become one of the most important languages of our country. English connects us well globally. It is one of the most important questions that how English spread in India and became so famous. It not only spread, but it is deeply embedded in we Indians. Come on, let us see from the beginning, from the time of arrival of the Britishers in India. Britishers first landed on Indian territory in 1600. Their main aim was to build trade relations with India. Especially India was famous for its flavored spices and many more things. They established British East India Company. Queen Elizabeth gave them the royal charter to do so. With time, they started expanding their influence in India. They established trading posts along country's coast. Slowly and slowly, they became powerful. They empowered themselves with arms and ammunitions and ruled over India over a long time. The system of governance started from 1858 until India got independence in 1947. During the trading period, they understood the value of education, though their only motto was to earn profit and only profit through trade. And they also have cheap labor. It would be easier for them to work with learned Indians. So they started building few institutions for higher education. Sanskrit, Arabic and Persian was taught in these institutions. Persian was used as a court language. This was done to show that they were also one among us. Till 1813, Oriental education was supported by the Britishers. Country's first significant move towards modern education was First Charter Act of 1813, Clause 43. This law allocated 1 lakh rupees for financial support to native educational system in India. This was done during the reign of Governor General William Bentinck. He ruled from 1828 to 1835. The Second Charter Act was enacted in 1817, increasing the granted aid amounting to 2 lakhs. It took time for the charter to be executed. It remained as a paperwork only for a long time, as it could not be decided how to spend the whole ransom. The Governor General could not decide which education system, which language should be given preference, Indian or English. Which language should be promoted? On which schools and colleges should money be spent? Controversy arose among the people too. People splitted into two groups, Orientalists and Anglicists. Orientalists were the people who supported Sanskrit and Persian language. They upholded the view that Indians should be educated in their native tongue through their scriptures and books, whereas the Anglicists were the people who supported education in English language. The society present during that time had many groups. They were the missionaries, the utilitarians, evangelicals, and the liberals. Missionaries were on the way of spreading Christianity and converting the convinced Indians into Christians. So for them, it would be easy if language prevails, that is, if English is taught in India. It will be much more easy to preach and make them easily understand about Christianity. Utilitarian were against Indian culture. James Mill was an important name of this group. Evangelicals agreed with the missionaries. Charles Grant, William Wilberforce were of this group. Liberals were of the thought that English studies will create rational and logical thinking, which is good. Raja Ram Mohan Roy too wanted English. English in India, as it would help in removing ill practices of Indian society like Sati Pratha, child marriage, dowry, devdasi, etc., and encouraging girls' education, widow remarriages, etc. Logic of all the Anglicists were different, but at the end, they all wanted English studies in India. Now we come on the objectives of the Britishers. What was their main objective? Their main objective was to spend money on Western education, not on Indian education. They just encouraged universities that provided courses in Western policy, philosophy, and related topics. Whereas the Orientalists were in favor of Indian education. They wanted that Britishers should know Indian language and their culture well as they are in India. To solve this issue, Lord William Bentinck called Thomas Babington Macaulay. He came to India in 1834 as the head of the Executive Council. He was then appointed as the President of Public Instruction Committee. Macaulay was a historian, lawyer, politician, orator, and an essayist. Lord William Bentinck discussed with him on Charter Act 1813, Clause 43. He asked him to solve the problem as to how to spend 1 lakh on educational system so as to stop the conflict between Anglicists and the Orientalists. Orientalists and Anglicists debate arose from the disagreement within the British East India Company on the type of education that should be provided to the local Indians. Anglicists supported English as the medium of instruction, while the Orientalists supported vernacular language such as Sanskrit, Arabic, and Persian. He had to make out syllabus and the method of instruction for modern education to be successfully implemented in India. He was also asked to explain about what literature is and which one is better, Indian or British literature. At the same time, he was also asked to differentiate between Indian and British scholar. But the most burning issue was how to spend 1 lakh money on education system. Macaulay worked on it. He travelled through different places in India, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, to observe the Indian society closely. Finally, he prepared the document which was named after him as Macaulay's Minute. It was regarding the spending of money on education system and the method of education system that should be followed in India. He submitted the Macaulay's Minute on 2nd of February 1835 to the Executive Council of that time in the British Parliament. Lord Bentinck, the Governor General, after studying it, approved it. Thus, the resolution was passed on 7th of March 1835 in favor of English education. While handing over the Macaulay's Minute, Lord Macaulay delivered a short speech in the British Parliament, which is as follows. I have travelled across the length and breadth of India, and I have not seen one person who is a beggar or who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, such high moral values, people of such caliber, and I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the backbone of this nation, which is her cultural heritage, and therefore I propose that We replace her old and ancient education system, her culture, for if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them to be, a truly dominated nation. This is how Lord Babington Macaulay addressed to the British Parliament on 2nd of February 1835. According to Lord Macaulay, English literature was the best. He said he will accept only those Indians who has the knowledge of English language and literature. He mocked on Sanskrit and Arabic literature. According to him, Indians can only be a scholar when they study John Keats, Milton's poetry, John Locke's philosophy, and so on. He was of the view that Persian and Sanskrit literature should not be taught and printed, and at the same time, publishing them should no longer be continued. It should be stopped. Only English books should be printed and published. Lord Macaulay's Minute marked a pivotal moment in India's colonial history, advocating for the promotion of the English language in education only, hence shaping the fate of the country's educational landscape. Macaulay had a definite and specific purpose before him. It was promotion of English language, or we can say English studies in India. After the recommendation of Macaulay's Minute, English education started in India's colonial schools and colleges instead of Sanskrit, Arabic, and Persian. He was dismissive of Indian language and knowledge, so he considered them to be of little value. This is the reason why he was a supporter of Anglicists and not the Orientalists. Hence, he strongly advocated Western education. So, Lord Macaulay is credited for the introduction of British education system in India. This helped Lord Macaulay's wish to be fulfilled. He wished to cultivate a group of Indians who would support and uphold British interests. This group would be Indian by blood and color, but English by beliefs, morality, intellect. He strongly believed that Indian learning was inferior to European learning, which was correct in terms of physical and social sciences of that time. It was very, very clear that Western education was not in favor of Sati Pratha, child marriage, Devdasi Pratha, polygamy, and many more. These were ill customs of Indian society. Even Raja Ram Mohan Roy wanted to eradicate the social evils with the help of Britishers. Now let us see the merits and demerits of this new education system. Merits and demerits both go side by side. Now on the merits. Spread of English language helped the freedom fighters to understand the Britishers, their attitude and their plans, and so on. This helped them to plan themselves well and move ahead for the independence struggle. The second benefit of Macaulay's Minute was that it contributed towards laying the foundation of contemporary education system in India. It was a great boon for the Indians. It marked the change from indigenous educational system to formalized modern one. It proved to be a doorway to modern world literature. Hence, new literary genre and the writing techniques emerged. It also served as the model for the Indians to investigate the present educational system in their nation and produce reports and raise the standard of education. Now we come to the demerits of the Macaulay's Minute. First and foremost, Macaulay's minute was stoking fire, or we can say it was adding fuel to the fire of Occidental and Oriental controversy. Second was that Macaulay did not bother to listen to the arguments of Orientalists. He right away ignored their pleadings and at the same time did not leave any opportunity to insult them. The assertion that English was key to modern education was difficult for the Indians in general to accept and get educated in all levels in English. Along with that, many Indian languages have gone unstudied. His remark that a single shelf of fine European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia ignited the natives. His downward filtration theory, which stated educating a small group of well-to-do Indians in English and then they in turn will educate the larger and larger section of Indians, did not work. Hence, literate and illiterate section of society were created. The wealthy group of Indians never helped the lower class of Indians. So we can say that this strategy did not work. It was not at all practical. So now we come to the conclusion. We now overall conclude that promotion of English language was very useful. It became the language of administration and court. Now English was not at all considered as the language of foreign rulers of India, as it became one of the official languages. Modern ideas started reaching the masses through political parties, public forum, press, pamphlets, and other channels, if not through schoolings. The modern education system provided access to fundamental texts in physical and social sciences to Indians, which encouraged them to conduct social analysis. Other than that, the content organization and modern curricula of modern education and suited colonial objectives, even though their techniques did not work in the way they had thought. In the last, we can say that father of English education in India is Thomas Babington Macaulay. Thanks, hope you enjoyed this class.